Hello and welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. I'm Jess and I'm here today with Chief Podsiadly with the Scott Township Police Department in Pennsylvania, serving over 25 years in law enforcement. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Something I heard is that you just had a new grandchild last week.
We did on Friday. Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone is healthy, so we're very happy
Good.
about that.
Good. And that's not your first grandchild, right? You've had a few of them.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Three in total.
Amazing. Well, I would love to talk a little bit about your career, how you have gotten to where you are now, and then how you balance that. You have grandchildren, you've had kids. How have you balanced that work life?
Well, I started my career in 1999. I attended the police academy here in Pennsylvania. At the time, job prospects were very competitive in the Pittsburgh area, and I have family in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And my cousin was a police officer in Atlanta, and he said that they were dying for people to to get on down there. So I moved to Atlanta, started down there. I was there for 2 years in the Metro Atlanta area. Uh, I got homesick. I wanted to come home. I was young, had a small child, and we wanted to be near family. So we came back to the Pittsburgh area. Um, when I first came back, I got hired with the Robinson Township Police Department, which is a neighboring agency to Scott Township here. I was there for a very short time, and the opportunity opened up here at Scott. I took it, and I've been here since 22 years. So in Scott, I served as a patrolman. I worked drug task force. I'm an instructor of defensive tactics and general instructor. I was promoted to sergeant, worked as sergeant for approximately 10 years on patrol. And then the chief retired or was retiring. And I had attended the FBI National Academy in 2014, which is a leadership training, which you may be familiar with from your other interviews. Um, so, talking with the chief, the outgoing chief, he, thought that I would be a good fit. So he started preparing me to take the role. And then once he retired, I was appointed as chief. And I've been chief since 2020. So 2020. Yeah. Right in COVID. I got it right at the start of COVID. So that
Yeah,
was an interesting thing to navigate as
that
soon as
had
I
to be a
took the
tough,
position.
yeah, a tough thing to navigate. What was one of your biggest challenges? You had things happen.
Trying to keep, so we're not a very large department. We have 24 officers. Big thing was keeping everyone healthy. We actually came up with basically a COVID schedule. We worked with guys on call. So they took patrol cars home. We had two guys working, two guys on call. If we needed them, we would call them in. It's kind of thinking outside the box a little bit to keep everybody healthy. But it worked out. We had no downtime. Anyone who got COVID happened to get it perhaps while they were on their, and they only worked 2 weeks about too. So they would work 2 weeks and be off 2 weeks. So it seemed to just fall perfect. But that was probably the biggest challenge. And selling that schedule to our board of commissioners wasn't too difficult. They understood the challenge,
Yeah.
but it worked out very well. So that was nice. We kept everyone healthy and had no issues. So
Wow. I mean, you come in and not only have the challenge of learning the new position of being a chief, and then also on top of it, COVID happens.
right.
You have to work and get creative and find ways to make things work and
It
be
was
there for your
interesting.
team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting time. And you said that you moved back to be closer to family
Yes.
when you first started your career. Was there
Correct.
anything that led you to that decision? Like, okay, like you were already in Atlanta, like you were establishing your career there. And then you have to make that decision for your family too.
Sure.
So like going
I
back to
mean,
balance.
and it was kind of a snap decision, which isn't always the way I do things. I was actually talking to my parents on the phone one day, And I mentioned something. I don't remember exactly what precipitated the conversation. And this was what probably changed my mind the most because my dad's never said this to me before. He said, "You should probably just quit and come home." And he's never told me to quit anything before. And, that was kind of like, well, maybe if he's saying that, this must be the right decision. And obviously it was. It worked out very well for the family and for my career. So it was the right decision to make. And it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be making that big move. And they were actually coming. I think that's what it was. They were actually coming into town to visit my uncle.
Okay.
And he said you could just, and it was it like a couple weeks. I could give my notice and just leave when they leave. We'd rent a truck and drive back. So, and that's what I ended up doing. So, um, it worked out. I'm
Yeah.
very happy with that decision.
Would you say that was one of the best pieces of advice your dad has given you?
Probably one of them for
Yeah.
sure. I don't know where I would be if I was still there. That the department that I was at was extremely busy. It was good experience. I met a lot of good people, made some good friends, but I don't think it was the fit for me. It was a little bit different.
I know family is very important to you, and it's something that you encourage your officers to prioritize is having that family time. What are some of the ways that you encourage officers to have their family time?
Well, I mean, we're a very close-knit department. We do a lot of things together. We have coming up here next month, we have our annual 4th of July picnic for the police department. Everyone's invited, families invited. I know everybody's wives. I know everyone's girlfriends, kids. I mean, it's a very tight group. And I don't know that I do anything in particular. I think it's just kind of known that, we support, family comes first. And, we'll talk about that a little bit later too. That's one of my big things to tell younger people, is,
Oh yeah.
that comes first. So, I think they just know that. And, obviously we're supportive. If anything comes up, we make it work. If it's,
Yeah.
obviously we make sure that they have the time with their family that they need. And, if there's troubles or anything, we help them through it. So, um, and just knowing, when I was younger, I put so much into the job that other parts of my life suffered. My time with my kids suffered. Um, I put so much effort into work, which ultimately was successful, but there was a price to pay for that. And, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see anyone else have that same issue. So, I've kind of changed my view of, I had more of an old school mentality of, work is always comes first. And, I would work tons of overtime. I was always here. I was always thinking about work and it didn't work out. Everything's turned around, gotten better. I've kind of learned my lessons through my through my life and my career, but I learned them the hard way. And if I could help somebody get through that without dealing with the hardships that I did, then I'm going to do that. So,
And I think it's something that's more common to be talked about now. I mean, there's still a stigma around the mental health. What experiences shaped you and your how you got to where you are now? I mean, in the beginning, you said
mhm.
it
um,
wasn't always that way.
in what respect? What experience?
For mental health and just getting yourself to mental health and wellness in general.
Sure. What's actually kind of, unfortunately, it's come through tragedy.
Yeah.
My best friend and partner that I worked with in Atlanta committed suicide. I have three very close personal friends now that have committed suicide. One extremely recently, and when my best friend did it, that was a shock, and that really opened my eyes to the importance of self-care and making sure that you're doing the things to make sure you're not good to anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself, really. So, That's the big thing, and not being afraid to ask for help when you need it. So that's really how I've gotten to be so, I'm a stickler for it. I make sure that the guys and ladies are good at all times. When I think we're going to talk about it here shortly. We hired a social worker. That was a big thing in the interview process when we were interviewing social workers was, what do you do for self-care? Because they have, I mean, they're dealing with just as much, if not more, tragedy and things than we are. You know what I mean? And they need to make sure that they're taking care of themselves because they're just saddling themselves with everybody's problems. So, that was part of the interview process was what they're doing for self-care. So, um, that's extremely important to me. And it has really shaped how I view my relationship with the officers in the department, with pretty much everybody I encounter. You just want to make sure that people are doing what they need to take care of themselves. So I would say that's a big thing. Unfortunately, it came from a tragic experience. So
Yeah, sadly, some of these things it does take coming from a tragedy. I know that's one thing that put me on my path. I had a friend commit suicide, and it led me into doing these things and,
sure,
getting out there. But there has to be a way to be more preventative versus experiencing and going through those
sure.
events. And
And,
that's
and
what
I
we're all
think
working towards.
that's my big push for it is to erase that stigma.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the stigma that comes with it, and that's kind of what I told our officers. Even I said, look, if it comes down to it, even if you come to me and tell me you need help, but you're afraid of maybe people's opinions of that, I'll be the bad guy and I'll just order you to go. That will take the stigma away, or whatever we need to do. But, erasing that stigma is huge. I think that's the ultimate goal. But I will say that I notice with the younger officers, they view it differently. So it's kind of like it's a good thing. I think it's kind of growing out, with as older officers retire who had maybe a little bit different mentality, where the younger officers, it's more accepted in their generation. So
Yeah.
that's important and it's
Well,
working. I think it works.
I think it
So,
comes to the leadership and, the parent, the advice you're getting from your parents and the people that
mhm,
you're surrounding yourself with is so important to be able to be comfortable and then to have the trust. I think those two things add in a lot to building the culture in the community.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the social worker, you brought in a social worker. How has
Yes.
that changed your
Well, this was a long time coming, and it's kind of a humorous story as to how this came about. I went to a conference with my board of commissioners, and I was looking at there's very rarely courses there for the police, but there happened to be one at this conference that we went to, and it said social work in the police department. And I said, oh, heck no. That's not going to happen. I specifically went to that course for the full purpose of telling them that replacing police with social workers is not the answer. I went there basically to block them from getting any ideas whatsoever. And once I went and saw the program that it was actually Hampton Township Police Department that they had in place, totally changed my view. Totally changed my view. It's a co-responder program. They're going out, they're not replacing anybody, obviously. They're building their own caseload, and it's taking the onus off of officers who don't necessarily have the expertise or the repeat calls that we get that we don't want to deal with, we don't know how to deal with. Instead of frequent 911 calls, you know, Sydney, our social worker, now has people that call 911 on a daily basis, not calling 911 and telling them, write down your thoughts, and in the morning, call me. Call me at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Is what time I start. Call me and we'll discuss what you were going to call 911 about. And it's actually working. I mean, we've already in a month have cut calls down. are frequent flyers, so to speak. Um, we're not dealing with them nearly as often, and it's pretty amazing. And you have to find the right one. I mean, she's a perfect fit. She comes from a family of law enforcement, so she understands what we're doing. And it's been fantastic. And it's 5 years. It took me 5 years to get this off the ground. So it's kind of a point of pride for me a little bit because we've been fighting for this for 5 years, and funding's always an issue. When we need to hire officers and stuff, and you know, the board of commissioners are saying, well, we can't afford both. If you either need an officer, well, we obviously need to have the officer. So it kind of kept getting pushed to the back burner. And we finally received a grant to launch the program that will cover it for 2 years. So it will be proven at that point and will show the success of the program. And I have no concerns with it, not being continued going forward. So we're super excited about it. And she does a great job. Um, like I said, she's only been here a month, and she was thrown into the fire as soon as she started. There was a lot of big things that happened. And so she's really being tested right from the jump. So, but she's doing great, and we're super proud of the job she's doing so far. So,
That's very exciting, especially after 5 years of working
yes.
towards something to finally see it come to fruition.
Yeah, we were really excited that we got the grant,
Mhm.
and knowing that we could finally get this rolling. And it's kind of prideful at this point because we worked pretty hard to get to this point. And she fits in, the officers like her. It's a great situation right now, so we're happy with the success so far.
And you had mentioned she does have law enforcement in her background. Was that something you were specifically looking for in a social worker?
um Not necessarily, as long as they understood, um because you do have to find the right fit. You have people, right, wrong, or indifferent, that have different maybe agendas coming into a police department. In the interview process, we found people that are looking to reform police departments and try to you know prevent excessive force and things like. Well, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for support staff who's going to come in and do the things that we can't do. Be that person, that extra leg of the police department that's going to come in and handle the situations we're not trained or equipped to handle. And it was an extra bonus that her father is a police officer and her other family members are police, and that she comes from that background and already understands it. But there were other candidates as well who understood it, even that they didn't have the background, but she happened to be the best fit. So, but it was, so I would say it wasn't something that we were specifically looking for, but it was a nice added bonus for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And what other wellness have you incorporated into your initiatives since becoming chief?
Um, we don't have much because we are small. One big thing, working out on duty. We allow them an hour to go work out, get their workout in, as long as manpower's, sustained to do it. Because it is, I mean, fitness is a big, stress reliever. And we have a lot of guys who are, gym goers. So, allowing them to get their workouts in while they're working, that's been one of the bigger things.
Mhm.
Really, we haven't incorporated much else. Now with Sydney here, the social worker, she's available for in-house if anyone needs to talk to her. Although I don't know if that will ever take off or not necessarily with, the relationship that the guys now have with her, because they might feel a little awkward having a conversation with
Yeah.
her. But you never know. You
Yeah.
never know. And otherwise, just anytime there's an issue, I have friends who are counselors, trauma counselors, and, just general practitioners, for lack of any knowledge, offer their information up any opportunity. I could see where someone might, and there are ones that I know. One I particularly went to see myself, and I know that they understand what we're going through. So yeah, I'm pretty free flowing with sharing that information. And it was shared with me from other officers. So I'm just kind of passing it along. That's really it as far as like, I don't really have any programs per se in place aside from the working out while on duty. But that's been a hit. So the guys enjoy that. The township itself has like a wellness clinic that they put on through the insurance company and stuff like that. Doesn't seem like guys really take advantage of that though. I don't know why, but that is offered,
Mhm.
but it doesn't seem that anyone really takes advantage of it.
I think it's one of those things if people have to, they want to work out, they're going to go work out at some place that they feel the most comfortable, or maybe they
Hmm.
have friends outside of work and they want to join them or something like that.
Right, right.
Uh,
And I mean, we don't have the best gym facility, but we've kind of put it together ourselves. A lot of us were big weightlifters in our time, so a lot of it's our personal equipment, but I mean, it's actually turned out to be pretty nice. So, you know, the guys bought a sauna. They pitched in and bought a sauna to put in the gym, so we have a
yeah,
sauna.
that's
So,
sort of, when it's fun when you have something that you've contributed to
right.
and you were able to kind of build that. And you've
Yeah.
talked about like the 4th of July, how you're doing a picnic with the family included.
Hmm.
That does all contribute to health and wellness. It's building the culture
Hmm.
and creating a happier place for people to go to work.
Sure. And that's one thing I could say is that we have a atmosphere here where it's very rare that you don't come to work and actually have fun. We encourage, I think, it's different for different places, but here, you know, we encourage like, hey, lunchtime, come in, we'll sit down, we'll have lunch together. It's 20 minutes, but, we're all together, doing different things. The 4th of July picnic, there's always a Christmas party. Christmas parties for adults. 4th of July party is for all families, and it's fireworks and everything. I mean, there's a big program at the park. They do fireworks every year, and we set up a giant tent, and everyone knows we're there too. So not only are you getting the township is getting pretty much every police officer in the that works in the township in the park on the 4th of July, if anything would happen. Um, but also you've got, people seeing us as human beings. And, we're there just having a good time with our families. So um, that is nice. And it is, the guys appreciate it. And it's nice to know everybody's kids and everybody knows who we are. And so we do have it pretty good here for sure.
Probably one of the joys of working in a small town.
It is. It
Everybody
is.
knows everybody. I grew up in a small town.
Okay.
So it was 4th of July was a big thing in
Yeah.
small town. Now I'm in Arizona and it's hot and fireworks get prohibited a lot. So
Yeah, I could
it's
see
just
that.
not the same.
I could see that. And I mean, we're small in respect to, I mean, we're densely populated. We touch the city of Pittsburgh, so we're a suburb of Pittsburgh. Um, but we have almost 20,000 residents packed into 4 square miles. So we stay pretty busy work-wise, but it still has that small town feel, which is nice. And we do know a lot of the people that, live around here because it is only 4 square miles. It's not a very large area. So.
Yeah. And would you say, like, what has been the most rewarding part that gives you that this is why I'm doing this job feeling?
I think it's just, I mean, you see on the news, you see all of the negative press that's put out there about police departments and everything. And I think when it comes down to it, as silly as it sounds, it's true support that's actually there that most people don't get to see. Even if it's something as simple like on our Facebook page, if we post something, when people start getting negative, even on a social media post, residents who we know, who we see their names, obviously we know who they are the ones that are jumping in and defending the police department. And we don't even have to say anything half the time. They get on there and they start going at it. It's entertaining. But and that's when you realize, and even just riding around, talking to people, the amount of support, people dropping off cookies and especially, holidays, things like that. There is a lot of support for the police department. So I think that's the big thing in that if you're if you're kind of blind to it or not involved in it, you would think that there's a pure hatred for the police, just based upon what is portrayed in the media. But the truth is that, we're supported by pretty much the entire community, and that's important to us. And the guys appreciate having that support for sure.
That is really important, and that's refreshing to hear because you are dealing with so much trauma on the day to day. I mean, you're going out into this on the streets and dealing with that. So it's really nice to be able to have this more support of your community.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for officers who feel like they are struggling, but they don't necessarily feel like they can go get the help that they need, or they can't ask for the help that they need?
Um, well, obviously, I would encourage that, if, to ask, not be afraid to ask. I mean, it's not a weakness. I mean, in my opinion, it takes a stronger person to ask for help than it does to keep your mouth shut. And, if you feel that you need help, ask for it or seek it out or whatever is the best, call me. I mean, I may not even know you. Call me and I'll tell you, I'll guide you in the right way. Um, it's important, like we talked about, breaking that stigma. And I think a lot of people need to understand that it is diminished, that I think it is less than it was back, let's say 10, 15 years ago. Um, it's more accepted by most people, and no one's really going to know either, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's not like we're advertising if someone asks us for help. I would encourage anybody who sees this and is, on the fence, ask or, reach out to somebody, be it your team or another police department, a friend, somebody who you feel comfortable talking to that's going to push you in the right direction. I think the worst thing that could be done is to just be silent and not go for it, not get the help that you need for sure. Because I've seen the tragic end that comes from that, and I never want to see that. So,
Yeah. Do you think having cell phones at our, in our hands, at our fingertips, because we came from a time where we didn't have these cell phones attached to us,
right.
and there's pros and cons to it. Do you
Hmm.
think having access to a phone to be able to call someone so quickly if you are struggling is helping or hurting?
Um, I honestly don't know. I don't know. I think I think the phones and this age of instant information is it's good, but it's also bad. There's so much out there and so much misinformation out there as well. But I mean, I don't know if whether having the ability to call someone at the drop of a hat, I would think it would be helpful, because it's right there. But um, I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that. That's a good
I
question.
just thought of it as we were talking about that. You mentioned you can just call anybody at any point, and it's
Right.
easier to talk to more people than ever before.
Hmm.
So pick up the phone, I think is you know,
Right.
pick up the phone.
Sure.
We're
And I don't
texting a
know.
lot more than
Yeah.
calling now, I think.
Yeah. A lot of
But
people don't like to talk on the phone. But even if it's a text,
mhm,
whatever gets the ball rolling.
mhm,
It may prompt a phone call. That text message may prompt
right,
a phone call,
right.
but I mean, it still gets the ball rolling. I think that, that's the big thing, not to be afraid, ask for help if you need it for sure.
And it can be scary. People are afraid of judgment, and
Hmm.
you know,
Well, and they're afraid too with, you know, is it going to affect their job? Are they going to get in trouble if they think it's like a getting in trouble type scenario, and that's not the case. I mean, um, they, I don't know. I don't know how to, other than just saying it. If people don't believe me, you're not going to get in trouble if if you ask for help. And it shouldn't affect your job. So I think that's the biggest thing is to get people to that level of comfort where they know that they can talk to somebody if they need to. But I encourage anybody, reach out. You can look me up on the internet on our webpage. If you want to call me, call me. So
Chief Podsiadly with the Scott Township Police Department.
correct. 412-276-7725.
And with that, what words of wisdom do you have for our younger generations?
Well, I have a few. I have a few bullet points. I think the biggest one is, and I alluded to it earlier, that this is just a job. It's what we do. It's not necessarily who you are as a person. One day when you retire, the department's going to replace you, and that's it. And but the big thing is that your family only gets one version of you, and I think it's important to have that separation, give your family the time that they deserve, because you're putting all your time into the police department and you're not giving anything to your family, and that's not fair. That's not fair to the family, and it creates problems. It creates situations where maybe you're not as close to your kids. You miss games and plays and musicals or whatever, and you can't get that time back. So I think that would be my first thing, is that remember that this is just a job, and that you have to make sure that you're spending your time with your family. Another thing is to protect your integrity at all costs, more than anything, more than your reputation. Reputation is temporary. Your integrity is your legacy. So make sure that you're keeping your integrity intact and being a good person. Don't let cynicism become your personality. It's easy to get into that, what we see on a daily basis, to become kind of cynical. Um, don't let that become who you are. That's huge for me. Um, and like I said, one day, once you retire, what matters is that you were human throughout that whole time. We're just people, and I think people don't understand that. Think you go to where we go to a party, and we're introduced as a cop. We're not introduced as, this is Matt. He's a police officer. And I think that even the general public thinks of it that way. Be human, and just when you're an officer, be the one that is trustworthy, be the one your partners and fellow officers can lean on. When you go home, your family should still recognize who you are. You shouldn't be a different person. We already talked about asking for help is not a weakness. It's a strength. Always ask for help. And lastly, like that shield or star that you're wearing on your shirt or your coat, it may shape your life and who you are as a person, but it should never consume you. We're held to that higher standard. That's a good thing, but it also shouldn't define who you are as a person. And, I think I fell into that myself. So like I said, I was a workaholic. I was here all the time. I missed a lot of stuff with my kids, and I never got that time back. So as I came into a position where I was able to reverse that, my kids are all older now, but, now I'm able to be a dad. I've
And
kind of learned the error of my ways. So, and granddad, yeah, or pap, as they
yep.
call me. So, but yeah, I'd say, I think I covered all my bullet points there um, for my advice for our future in law enforcement here.
Great advice. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.